Good afternoon and welcome everybody on this webinar organized by XBRL India. India is one of the early entrants in the field of the digital reporting standards XBRL. ICAI has taken initiative back in 2007 by constituting the XBRL group for promotion and development of XBRL in India. My name is Jagnesh Desai. I am a chartered accountant and have 39 years of post-qualification experience. I am a CPA from USA, but I am more proud to be a chartered accountant from India. Today, besides our Honorable President Sri Nihar Jambusaria, who is also chairman of XBRL India, and Vice President Debashish Mitraji, who is the director of XBRL, CCM Charanjot Singh Nandaji, then MP Vijay Kumarji, both of them are also the director of the XBRL India. Friends, it's always an honor to introduce our Honorable President of ICAI, but I have one more reason to be very happy about it, and that's I have a privilege to introduce one of my best friend, and that happens to be our President today. Friends, we are privileged to have with us esteemed guest speakers, Mr. Abhijit Pai from BSc, Mr. Vivek Baid from IASB, International Accounting Standard Board. Something very interesting about him, which I'll share you a little later. Ms. Revati Raman, who is GM XBRL International, and also the director of XBRL India. And CA Rahul Damne, who is a trainer from IRIS Business. We are all grateful to you, all of you friends, for sparing your time, valuable time, and sharing your experience and enlightening us about the XBRL today. All these dignitaries will share their wisdom and experience, as also share the untold stories about XBRL. They will also share some untold story about the XBRL, and for this, I invite Central Council member Mr. Charanjot Singh Nanda, who is also the director of XBRL, to give his welcome speech. And incidentally, Mr. Nanda is also a good friend of mine. So over to you, Mr. Nanda. And Nanda ji, एक share तो कम से कम होना ही चाहिए. If there is no share, then there is no speech by Mr. Nanda. So please, over to you, Nanda ji, sir.
Thanks a lot, my friend Jagnesh Desai, sir. The most honorable president of the institute, C.A. Nihar Jambusaria, sir, who hails from Mumbai, our honorable dynamic vice president, C.A. Debashish Mitra, who hails from Guwahati, my very esteemed council colleague, C.A. MP Vijay Kumar, who hails from Chennai, Jagnesh Bhai, Rahul Damne ji, Abhijit Pai ji, Madam Revati Ramanan, Vivek Baid ji, and all who are present here. Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse me because I'm traveling, therefore I'm doing it in a garden. But the most important thing to move on in the right stream. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the XBRL India, ICAI, and on my own behalf, being the director of XBRL India, I extend a very warm welcome to you all to the webinar on digital reporting, XBRL, and evolving concepts. I also extend a warm welcome to our Honorable President and Vice President of ICAI, who have graced the webinar with their kind presence. A fundamental premise, that is a necessity and a predominant condition to create a well-functioning digital economy, is the availability and access to quality data. We have been speaking about data analytics. We have been speaking about artificial intelligence, all move in this direction. In respect of financial data collection, financial statements are an essential document sought by various users and regulators. This information can be reported in different ways. In today's technological era, all of you know that the idea of seeking for data instead of documents has gained acceptance, and the regulatory and business world has already started moving from documents to data. Very, very importantly. Now, if the flow of the information between these agencies is digital and robust, it enables them to immensely use the reports for monitoring and analyzing, rekeying of information or other conversion which has been possible with the use of XBRL. With the use of XBRL, the aggregation and publishing of data collected also becomes easier as the reports are digital and consistent. Ladies and gentlemen, XBRL is an electronic data standard that has led to integration across disparate system or group of users, thereby materially reducing transaction costs and increasing the efficiencies, thereby giving an error-free environment. Now, XBRL is not new to India. With the mandate of filing of financial statements, financial information in XBRL format with the mandates from MCA, RBI, SEBI, NSE and BSE. In India, the IS, you're all aware that ICAI, as apex accounting body, has taken up the responsibility of XBRL implementation and adoption. In this regard, I want to just apprise, XBRL India was set up by the ICAI. XBRL India is an extended arm of XBRL International, which has been working for the promotion of XBRL in India, education in area, and developments in relevant taxonomies in this regard. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to conclude by saying that in order to progress, reinvent, and remain at par with international developments, it is very essential to grab the required knowledge and awareness, which we are embracing the path of digital reporting. More importantly, in the endeavors of educating the society, that today's webinar has been organized by XBRL India. So with these words, I take the pleasure in welcoming our speakers of the day, Shri Abhijit Pai, CA Bad, Miss Revthi Ramanan, CA Rahul Dhamne, who will throw the light on the different aspects related to digital reporting, XBRL and evolving concepts. A warm welcome to all of you. But before that, I want to just recite a couplet, which is a very relevant and pertinent couplet in today's circumstances. Please understand, ladies and gentlemen, people who are vigilant, people who intend to go to the path of progress are always inclusive. They always get involved. So, old Urdu Shair once said, manzil mil hi jayegi, thoda bhatakkar hi sahi. Manzil mil hi jayegi, thoda bhatakkar hi sahi. Gumrah to wo hain jo gharon se nikle hi nahi. People who have come here on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock are people who are vigilant, people who understand their rights, obligations, and how they can progress his life. So I welcome all of you, and I want to thank the President and Vice President for giving me an opportunity to be on the board of the XBRL. Thank you. Thank you so much. I wish this conference a great success. Thank you. Thank you so much. Over to you, Ignesh Bhai.
Thank you, Nandaji. Nandaji, one more reason for people to listen to is not just your technical knowledge, but even also your shairis. And I am also one of them.
Thank you. Thank you, Ignesh Bhai. Thank you so much.
So friends, we learn a lot about XBRL, but by and large, XBRL have been, used by those who are reporting to the required authorities or the statutory authorities. But in today's session, we are going to hear from all dignitaries, all the speakers, as to how it's going to be useful even to the common man and all this. And if I'm not mistaken, Revati ji and Rahul are going to come out with some examples. Sorry, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Bed, Vivek ji and Rahul ji are going to come out with some examples also. So friends, stay tuned and wait for the very excited examples. This is going to be very enriching examples. And now I have a pleasure to invite Dr. Debashish Mitra, the Vice President of ICAI, who is also the Director of XBRL India. And sir, it's over to you. Over to you, Debashish. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Desai, and good afternoon to everybody. The Honorable President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Nihar Jambusaria. My two council colleagues whom I see on the screen, MP Vijay Kumar and Charanjit Singh Nanda. Mr. Raghav Desai, Vivek Bed, Rahul Damne, Revati ji, Abhijit Pai and everybody else who are listening to me. a great pleasure on my part to be part of this program. When I say great pleasure, the great is underlined. Because see, since the time, I took over as the president, must really show that it is alive and kicking. And I'm very happy that today we are having a program on this. A few days back, we also had a kind of discussion with all regulators out as regarding how to take forward XBRL. Now, this program is today not only about XBRL or the extensible business reporting language, but also about digital reporting. And let me tell you, when we are doing digital reporting, the Institute is aware that there will be a huge technological change, a huge technological challenge as we go ahead. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, cyber security, data analytics will be areas where the Institute really must, be abreast of the latest that is happening, not only the Institute, but even the members who constitute the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. And it is in this context that when I have been discussing with the Secretariat of this XBRL India, I have said that let us do something to show that, we are totally, engrossed and totally committed to the well-being of XBRL. At that time, somebody raised this question that we are now going to have this sustainability reporting standards. Whether XBRL will be, in sync with the sustainability reporting standards, which are, a lot of non-financial data that will be there. And the feeling was this, that XBRL even could take the sustainability reporting standards. The second area, of course, and which I spoke to, the Secretariat was that to what extent we can develop the taxonomy for NBFCs. We have in the past developed the taxonomies, and taxonomies have been well received. So it is time that we also develop the taxonomy for NBFCs. So, and then let me tell you, when Nandaji talks about XBRL and its use, those of us who upload the XBRL compliant financial statements for listed companies, for example, let me tell you, these statements, when they are XBRL compliant, they subject themselves to very quick analysis. So, that is a very big advantage. Anybody who wants to analyze financial data, if it is XBRL compliant, the analysis becomes that much more easier. So I'm sure SEBI, RBI, etc. must be using this XBRL compliant financial statements to analyze and then to take a call on what is happening and what needs to be done in the future. Too much of your time. I know we have got very good, excellent speakers led by Yagnesh Desai today, and I have no doubt that the delegates and the participants will find the discussions very heartening, enlightening, and interesting. And in the words of Nanda ji, मुझे कोई भी डाउट नहीं है नंदा जी की जो आज में ये पार्टिसिपेंट जो आज का प्रोग्राम अटेंड कर रहे हैं, उनका मंजिल जो है ना, अगर भटकेंगे भी थोड़ा बहुत मंजिल तो जरूर मिल जाएगा. समझे कि नहीं? And I can see Nanda ji smiling on that. So with these words, once again,
rightly explained, sir. Rightly explained. Great, sir.
Thank you very much. So I wish all of you the very best. I wish all of you the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Devaji sir. Thank you. And now it's turn to hear none other than but our Honorable President Sri Nihar Jambusari. Nihar, I feel very happy to introduce you, being my very close and the best friends. So please, is over to you, President sir.
Thank you, Yagnesh. Good afternoon, everybody. Very learned Vice President of the Institute, CA Dr. Debashish Mitra, my council colleagues, CA Charanjot Singh Nandaji, CA MP Vijay Kumar ji, today's speakers, Abhijit, Vivek, Rahul, and Revati, and my friend Yagnesh, who is known for making everything very interesting, and I am sure that even today's sessions, by his interventions in between, will become very interesting for the participants. My name XBRL as such may not look very attractive, but as Nandaji said, even if we feel that XBRL is a strange new language, if we get involved into it, if we dwell into it, तो मंजिल दिख जाएगी. नंदा जी वैसे शब्दों के जादूगर है, मेरे को इतना समझ में नहीं आता, लेकिन I can very well understand one thing, that reporting by entities has an immediate and pervasive impact on decision making. It lays down future direction for the national economy. And in the era of technology, it is essential that the data must be reported in the most useful way. XBRL as a standard digital reporting aims to achieve this objective. So let us make XBRL very prominent, very useful, and as mentioned that for NBFC's taxonomy is not so far developed. I think along with NBFC, even banking and insurance companies are also not within the purview of XBRL. MCA, SEBI have made it mandatory for other companies to report in XBRL. NBFC, banking and insurance sectors are yet to be covered. But I think the way XBRL is being made easier and easier day by day, even these companies will be covered within XBRL norms very shortly. Adoption of XBRL would require existence of robust technologies. And currently XBRL India is primarily developing and maintaining AS and IND-AS taxonomies for the MCA. The taxonomies currently in use are updated in line with applicable amendments by the XBRL India and submitted to MCA on a continuous basis. And if we see the current mandate of MCA, then all public companies listed on stock exchange in India and their Indian subsidiaries, all companies with a turnover of 100 crore or more, all companies with a paid up capital of 5 crore or more, and all companies which are required to prepare their financial statements in accordance with the company's Indian Accounting Standard Rules 2015 are covered under XBRL. So with this kind of coverage, I think we must give enough due weightage to XBRL taxonomy's development. And if I see today's program, there is one session on experience sharing by BSc, another one overview of IFRS taxonomy and use of XBRL data with examples. So the entire webinar is made full of practical utilities. And I am sure that the speakers who have the experience in XBRL will make it absolutely interesting for the participants. So with this, thank you for inviting me and all the best for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Sir, for wonderful remarks. And friends, now I must share something with you. I have interacted with all the esteemed speakers today, and they've got something very exciting for all of us. I'm not going to share this with you. Let them share. Unki zuban sunte hain. That is very exciting thing for all you, and I'm sure there will be a huge takeaway from this webinar. So the first one amongst us, the speaker is Mr. Abhijit Pai, and he is he is the Deputy General Manager in the Listing Compliance Department of the Bombay Stock Exchange Limited, Mumbai, and he's there with BSc since last 15 years. Abhijit Ji is not from the finance field, surprisingly, but he's a Master of Management and possesses the BTech in Electrical Engineering. He's also involved in various initiatives related to the automation compliances process, including implementation of XBRL and corporate announcement filing system. He'll dwell on the benefits of XBRL from the perspective of the users and the filers. So now let's welcome Abhijit Ji. Abhijit Ji, it's over to you, and we are very eager to hear from you as to what is your perspective from the perspective. What is your perspective of SBRL, and what are the future developments from the for the SBRL, sir? So it's over to you, sir. Please. By the way, I must say that there is one participant from Singapore and one participant from Dubai, and in all there are 447 participants. Great. It's over to you, sir. Abhijit Ji.
Yeah, thank you, Yagnesh Ji, for that wonderful introduction. I'm just putting up my slide. Just confirm me if you are able to.
Yes, we can see your slides, sir. Sir, we can see your slides.
Okay. So the first thing what I'm going to cover is why we went for XBRL and what are our experiences in implementing this. So I'll try to be very brief in this. The first thing is before XBRL, what was the situation we had? So exchange, as you know, is required to collect a lot of different filings from various all listed companies. So these filings are of various nature. This can be on a quarterly basis, like say financial results are there. You have certain half-yearly financial reportings, which may not be exactly of financial nature. You'll have annual filings like your annual report, for example, and then there are a few other this. And then you also have event-based filings. Now, what happens is when you have these many types of filings, and many of these filings are very data-rich. You'll have certain filings which will have almost 400, 500 data fields, different data fields. And there has to be a proper integrity and all this. So these data fields we used to receive earlier as PDF documents. When you receive it as a PDF document, there is no as such standard format, I would say, a standard placement. So somebody would put that document as a portrait, somebody would have it in a landscape mode. There somebody used to put it in so much of microfont that you'll require probably a microscope to look at it. But then still, there were some who used to have a very huge font. So there was not appropriate standardization. Again, since it was a PDF submission, all we needed to do is we had to database it into our systems. We'll have, once the quarterly filings start, we'll have our army of data entry operators trying to key in all these data points. And the most common problem they used to face is they will enter 10 fields, and when it comes to the total field, the auto sum in the software used to say 100, and on the PDF document it used to be 99. These kind of say basic errors were rampant, the PDF filings. So these were some of the issues that we are facing. And again, since we have a large number of companies, some 4,500 plus. So, and typically what we had observed is these companies tend to file towards the deadline. So if 21st of a month is a deadline, the almost 2,500 companies used to file between 19th and 21st. That was kind of load we used to take. And the whole turnaround time, what we say for data entry, that was humongous. So that was affecting the overall analysis, monitoring, all these activities very, very significant. The other event that actually put us on this XBRL path or automation path was that the upcoming, I'm telling you a story of 2014-15. So when in 2015, it was in December 2015, listing regulations came in force. And the listing regulations is primarily a disclosure based. So there is a lot of additional disclosures which were introduced. And many of these disclosures were very extensive. So if we had to key in all the PDF submissions by the companies, that would have been a big humongous task. We used to have 50 people those days prior to the introduction of the listing regulations. Now we have 30 and we are still managing almost with double the number of data intensive filings. So just to put in perspective, most of our filings, they are having supporting some 15 plus different XBRL formats, but most of them are non-financials, non-financial filings, and one of the most complex filings are from the non-financial fold. So one of the reasons why we selected XBRL, or rather the reasons for selecting XBRL, first among them was that it was based on a international standard. So wherever we go across the world, we'll have a single standard. So it is like, say, we are a part of big global family. Then it was very suitable for electronic tearing, and also because since it is in an XML format, it was easy for us to pass it on further. Then again, because we are creating the taxonomy ourselves, we don't have to pay anyone any royalty, or there is no exclusivity which is there that only this can be used. And again, since being an open technology global standard, we don't need to go to somebody else and say, you give us rights to do this and that. So there is a lot of flexibility that is built in for us. So this is how we go ahead. Once we selected, we also had to put in place a system of how to collect the filings, because we have a large spectrum of companies. Some of them have a very advanced technology teams. We have kinds of TCSs and Infosys who are our listed companies. But we also have a lot of smaller companies who may probably not have even a single IT aware person. So they were kind of say comfortable with Excel. That kind of people were on board for many smaller companies. So we had to have a proper software system, or say a system for filing, which didn't tax the filers or the listed companies too much. So what we did is, just to say, put it very simply, we copied what the income tax does. We gave them an Excel utility, built-in validations, and these validations also, including one step ahead of validations, is there were certain things which we don't allow the companies to do. That is, number 8, totaling, number 2, calculation of percentages. So these are inbuilt within the system. Again, we ensure that nothing, to the extent possible, no data is keyed in twice. So if there is, I can give an example of the shareholding pattern, which is the first that we had put in place. So there are 4 sheets in that. So one, what we call the promoters shareholding, then we have public shareholding, and there is a others shareholding. And then there is a summary sheet, which is at the top of this. So the way we designed it is that none of the companies need to fill in the summary sheet. It is all calculated backwards from the other sheets. So that way, number of data entry points that the company needs to do, that we reduce. So that resulted in the number of errors that used to creep in. So the lesser number of data entries that you do, the lesser number of and that too conflicting data entries, that so number of data entries and all those, that reduce the error proneness. So once the data is entered into the Excel utility, it is validated, and only then the XBRL XML file is generated, which is uploaded on the interface that we provide. So once the company uploads it, it is again at that point it is verified whether it is a proper XML or not, and then it is taken in. Then we there is an internal team which quality checks for the whole filing. Then we put it out on the website. So that's the brief method how we do it. And just to put the difference, so pre-XBRL and post-XBRL. So many a times our, say, the first example which I had given, the shareholding pattern, that is filed up to the 21st day after the close of the quarter. The data entry used to continue for the next almost 20-21 days. Now what we do is we have this data ready on the 22nd or 23rd day itself. So that is the difference of say in which we receive this data that early. The similar for these are the kind of filings that we receive now. So one of the most complex reports that we receive, so we call at the top, that is a corporate governance report, which is the entire board composition, the committee compositions, their meetings, and their quorum. And this is a very expanding report. This is one of the most critical reports, and based on this, we're actually analyzing a lot from this report and even levying fines to companies for non-compliances. So you can just have a look. These are the major reports that we are as of now receiving in XBRL, and probably if we have this seminar one year down the line, the number of reports in this would be almost double the reports that we have now, which I'm showing. So these are the so I'll come to the advantages of XBRL that we experienced after we brought in. The first thing was, since we adopted it, the time for disseminating information to the investors has come down significantly. As I said earlier, our data entry used to stretch to 20-25 days. It has come, since the data entry is almost zero, and there is only a quality check. That's a faster process. We get it done, and where the dissemination is done within just 1 or 2 days. Again, since we are having a lot of validations at the data entry end itself, so the accuracy of filing has also increased significantly. And in fact, due to the XBRL implementation, there are certain level of, say, monitoring that we need to do. Earlier, it was a big effort for us if we had to extract certain customized data. So now, again, since we have the data ready, we can actually play around with that data, generate interesting type of reports, all this thing, and much faster. And again, this is something which we have, the last point which I would like to make here is, since we went into XBRL, the other exchanges also followed us. And as a protocol, we have decided among all the exchanges in India, stock exchanges in India, that we'll have a common taxonomy across all the exchanges. So there may be certain filings which, if a company wants to file, they can file the same file, exactly the same file, without making even a comma or a full stop change at all the exchanges in wherever they are listed. That is one what we call the ease of doing business step that we have taken. And due to this, there is another benefit that we have received is many companies who used to file, so there used to be some difference in filing at the different exchanges. So now that has been taken care. So since this is the ICAI forum, I just took a small opportunity to the share number of different filing formats just for financial reporting that we are as of now working on. The first is because we are required to collate quarterly financials and half-yearly financials. These are not as extensive as the annual financials that are submitted with MCA. They are relatively smaller what we call the profit and loss account, the asset liability statement, and cash flow on a half-yearly basis. So we are as of now having 6 different formats for which we have the XBRL ready. That is what we call the non-Ind AS companies, because we have still certain companies which are listed on the SME exchange, which operate on the non-Ind AS format. Then we have a large chunk of companies who are on Ind AS, and the third chunk is the NBFCs who have moved to Ind AS. So these are the 3 companies, but these 3 formats which are derived, based on the format specified in the Companies Act Schedule 3. Then we have a format which is prescribed for the banks. So it's a pretty traditional format from earlier. And then we have 2 formats, one for life insurance and one for general insurance, which has been prescribed by IRDA. These 6 formats, which we have to maintain simultaneously based on if there are any changes. So we have to assess even those changes and then upgrade our formats accordingly. And yes, this is probably, I'm not very sure if it is relevant for the listener here, but I'll just share what kind of requirements are there as a listed company or a listed entity for related to financial results. So first thing is primary main board companies have to file it on a quarterly basis. Again, they have to file standalone financials as well as consolidated financials, along with the limited review report or the annual audit report, whichever they choose. Then the SME companies and debt list and companies who have just their debt securities listed, they have a half-yearly obligation that every half year they have to file their financial results. And the deadlines are, of course, very tough. So for the quarterly and half-yearly results, the deadline is 45 days from the end of the quarter. And for the annual results, it is 60 days from the end of the quarter. And while the quarterly and half-yearly financial results can be audited as well as unaudited, the annual financial results have to be mandatorily be audited financials. Again, these financials have to be accompanied with the audit report or the limited review report wherever applicable. And the half-yearly and annual financial results also include the asset liability statement and the cash flow. So it's basically a proper picture of what the company has functioned during that quarter, half year, annual. So from the stock market perspective, these financials are a very critical information, and many analysts or investors look forward for those financials very keenly. So that was one of our objectives which put us on the XBRL path. So I think we have went a fair way on this route, and we have been benefited by having a faster turnaround time. So that's all from my end. Thank you for being a good audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you very much for the very wonderful, impeccable performance by you. You're really apprised of. So, sir, if I may say so, now can we say that we are at par with the world, and we are not left behind. We are, our data are interexchangeable internationally. Am I right in saying so, sir?
I would not comment on that, but at least one thing what we have achieved is at least on the between the exchanges we have a kind of coordination that there is a uniform filing across all the exchanges, and we are also getting more and more filings on board, and will shortly ensure that almost the whole filing that comes to the exchanges be entirely in XBRL. That has been our target, and in fact the regulator is very actively supporting this initiative.
All right. So what I can see is that this XBRL as of now is helping those who need to comply with the statutory requirements, maybe filing returns with the MC or so. But am I right, so sir? It is primarily and predominantly helping those who need to file or do some compliance with the ROC or MCA.
No, this is what I have covered here is entirely from the stock listed companies perspective.
Listed companies.
Entirely listed companies that it has. Because we are not within the unlisted companies fold, we don't have unlisted companies. The whole business of stock market has to do with the listed companies.
But sir, in view of this, I have one question for our future speaker, next speaker, Mr. Rahulji. You have to then explain me how Rahulji, normal people will be benefited by the XBRL, but this question I am parking for you during your session, so not now. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much about it. Great, really appreciate. आपने बहुत उम्दा काम किया. कम समय में बहुत कुछ कह दिया आपने. And now, sir, we have with us a technical staff from International Accounting Standard Board, IASB. My dear friend, as I told you that ICAI is not leaving any stones unturned to keep its member abreast of the latest development, more so the digital development, then even if it entails to invite someone from United Kingdom, London also, we don't mind so, and we have done so. And here we are privileged to hear from the horse's mouth, from the none other than the technical staff of International Accounting Standard Board, and from Vivek Bedi. Now, I had promised that I'll share something with you about Mr. Vivek Bedi. And Mr. Vivek Bedi at present is a technical staff at the International Accounting Standard Board, working with the IFRS Taxonomy team, but he has some connections with Delhi. He has some connections with the ICAI. Am I right, Vivek ji?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Yes. He has some connection with ICAI, and that is prior to joining the organization in 2018 ISAB, Vivek had worked with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for 6.5 years. So when friends, we were there, he joined at about 2:40 and he was getting goosebumps when he saw the ICAI sites and all these colleagues and all this. So Vivek ji, I think you are feeling very nostalgic today. Am I right, Vivek?
That is correct.
Okay. Sorry I'm calling you Vivek because एक
No
अपनापन लग रहा है.
problem.
Okay, see. अच्छा विवेक जी के साथ एक बात है कि विवेक जी, आर यू गोइंग टू शेयर सम प्रैक्टिकल्स टुडे?
Yes, I'm planning to, yes.
Oh, that's great, sir. Friends, so all our 529 listeners, viewers, there is something which is coming up very exciting now, and Vivek ji and Revati ji and even Rahul ji are going to share some practical aspects of SBRL. So I'm very keen to hear from you, Vivek ji. So Vivek ji, it's over to you now.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ignis, sir. It's a long time to see you again. So I'll just start sharing the screen first and then.
Yes, please. Yes, we can see your screen,
Yes.
sir. Vivek ji, we can see your screen.
Yes. So to start with, thanks to the XBRL India team for organizing a webinar on this very important topic and inviting me for this session on this IFRS taxonomy. So the plan for today is I'll give you an introduction to the IFRS taxonomy. We'll cover this because India's taxonomy is largely based on the IFRS taxonomy. And then I'll give you a brief overview of the recent developments in the digital reporting space from my perspective. And then I'll let you know various ways in which you can get involved with our work on digital reporting. And then finally, we'll get a bit more practical and we'll show you how XBRL data being or it could be used. Before we start, just a point to note that the views expressed in today's session will be just my views and do not necessarily reflect those of the IASB or the IFRS Foundation. So in essence, the objective of the IFRS taxonomy is to make the IFRS financial statements machine readable. PDF generally works fine for users who want to browse the annual reports. Example, reading about a particular company's exposure to defined benefit pension plans. However, for example, if an investor as a part of their screening process, wants to extract hundreds of companies' earnings per share to calculate and compare their PE ratio, that is price earning ratio, a computer would struggle to do this automatically on the basis of the PDFs. So users would either need to find in each PDF to find the EPS number and then manually type it into their spreadsheets for further analysis. Or what many users do today is they pay quite a lot of money for services of third-party data aggregators to get access to such data. The IFRS taxonomy supports an alternative model that is shown on the right-hand side of the slide, where companies themselves at the source report their data in a way that is machine readable in a language called XBRL. That model allows investors to access and analyze data in IFRS financial statements more easily. We'll see that later with few examples. So the idea is that companies tag the data in their financial statements with codes that the computer can understand. In essence, the IFRS taxonomy is a list of these standardized computer codes, or called as tags or elements, that companies can use to tag their IFRS financial statements. For example, we have tags or elements, as we called them in the IFRS taxonomy, for revenue, cost of sales, and gross profit. So each tag in the IFRS taxonomy has some additional information that is attached to it. So each tag has a description of its accounting meaning that to the extent possible is taken from the IFRS standards, and it has references to the related requirements in IFRS standards. Then tags are put into groups and hierarchies so that it's easier to browse the taxonomy and find tags. For example, tags that could be used in a P&L by function statement are grouped together in a structure, part of which is shown on this slide. You will have similar groups for tags that relate to business combinations or earning per shares or income taxes. Now at its core, the IFRS taxonomy contains tags that directly reflect the presentation and disclosure requirements of IFRS standards. And we have about 4,500 of those elements. Whenever a standard say an entity shall disclose X, we have a tag for that particular requirement. In addition, we have about 1,000 elements that reflect examples that are provided in the IFRS standards and implementation guidance. For example, IS 1 provides some example of classes of equity that an entity could disclose, such as issued capital, share premium, and reserves. So we have an example elements for each of these classes. Finally, we have over 1,000 so-called common practice elements. Now these elements reflect things that entities applying IFRS standards commonly report, but that aren't explicitly required by the standards. For example, IFRS 15 will say that an entity need to disaggregate their revenue into different types. So in the taxonomy, we have elements for revenue from sale of electricity or revenue from sale of gold, because these are types of revenues that companies commonly reported. Now, I want to emphasize that we really are very careful not to interpret the IFRS standards through the taxonomy. So when the standards don't define something, like for example, operating profit, the taxonomy won't have a definition either. So you could say that the taxonomy improves accessibility of IFRS financial statements, but does not make them comparable. That's the job of the IFRS standards to do. Now, preparing tagged financial statements does require some resources from the companies. So companies aren't normally tempted to do this voluntarily. So usually in a jurisdiction, it is the regulator, such as in the US it's SEC, or in Europe it's ESMA, or in India it's MCA and BSE and SEBI, that gets the ball rolling by requiring companies to file financial statements tagged with the IFRS taxonomy along with or maybe instead of their PDF. So the regulator makes the data more publicly available in some sort of repository. Users then can extract the data and analyze it to make investment decisions. In recent years, the IFRS taxonomy has really gained traction. So prior to 2018, it was really only a handful of jurisdictions that used it. And then in 2018, the SEC started requiring tagging using the IFRS taxonomy for foreign private issuers that are big companies from outside the US, but that are often dual listed in the US applying IFRS standards. For example, CFI, Infosys, ArcelorMittal. And now ESMA has also come along and will require all listed companies in Europe to prepare financial statements tagged using the IFRS taxonomy. Initially, this was planned for 2020 financial statements, but it was postponed by a year due to this pandemic. And even though the UK are leaving the EU, luckily, they are still planning to go ahead with it as well. So even after this Brexit and UK left the EU, they are still planning to go ahead with this, and they will have similar requirements as that of Europe. It's important to note that it is the regulator that determines what needs to be tagged and not the IFRS taxonomy. So example, the US SEC has a rule that every number in the financial statements has to be tagged individually, whereas ESMA in Europe says that every number in the primary financial statements need to be tagged individually. But you can tag the notes in big text blocks, not in detail. Now some recent developments in digital reporting space. So the ISB has been very busy since last year working on various topics that are relevant to communication of financial information in a digital format. We had published a new version of the IFRS taxonomy called as IFRS Taxonomy 2021. We have also proposed a new approach to develop the disclosure requirements in IFRS standards that discusses impact of the digital reporting on standard setting first. So the proposed guidance require more cooperation with the IFRS taxonomy team when they develop the disclosure requirement to better understand their impact on the digital reporting. Third is agenda consultation. So we are also considering what the IASB should focus on in the next 5 years, including the question of whether more or less effort should be allocated to digital reporting. And good news is that many stakeholders are in favor of increasing efforts in digital reporting space. It is still open for comments, and you may also get your views heard on this consultation. We have also seen many developments related to digital reporting around the world. In Europe, first filings under the European Single Electronic Format, that is SF, are already available. Even though this digital reporting requirement was postponed by many countries for 1 year due to the pandemic, this is because some countries did not postpone the digital reporting requirement, or some companies decided to do it voluntarily. In the USA, digital reporting has already been required for a number of years. This year, companies using IFRS standards will be required to use the inline XBRL format that we'll discuss later on. And many other countries continue their successful digital reporting programs, and several more are progressing projects on adopting digital reporting, including the use of IFRS taxonomy. And we should not forget about the current hot topic of sustainability reporting. Many people are already thinking about how such information could be reported in a digital format, and the work is going on this one. And just a brief overview of IFRS Taxonomy 2021. Over the past year, we published 5 IFRS Taxonomy update documents which explained various sets of changes introduced in the IFRS Taxonomy. Prior to that, we published proposed version of these updates to gather feedback from the stakeholders on the proposed changes. And after we consider all the feedback that we received from the stakeholders, we compile all the changes into the annual IFRS taxonomy. As a result of these updates, we have added more than 100 new tags to the IFRS taxonomy. Those new elements reflect new disclosure to the IFRS standards as well as common reporting practice we observed when analyzing over 400 electronic financial statements. We also added changes to the IFRS taxonomy to address around 10 specific issues raised by stakeholders to improve the quality of electronic information. So out of 5 taxonomy updates, 3 updates reflected limited changes to the presentation and disclosure requirements in IFRS standards issued in 2020. And the next 2 updates reflect changes to the IFRS taxonomy resulted from the analysis of common reporting practice in primary financial statements and the note of employee benefits. So we also provide help to stakeholders with using the IFRS taxonomy and avoid some errors in variety of ways. Some guidance is included in the IFRS taxonomy because it relates to the correct use of specific elements. So for example, those are references to explain the IFRS requirements each elements reflect, documentation labels to provide the definition of an element, and guidance labels that explains how to use that particular element. For example, which sign to use with that respective element. We also have a number of supporting materials on the website, some of which are as follows. IFRS Taxonomy Updates that helps in explaining changes that we have made to the IFRS Taxonomy. Versioning information that illustrates the changes to the IFRS Taxonomy in a presentation or hierarchical manner. And we also have guidance for preparers and regulators to help adoption and use of the IFRS Taxonomy in general. So we would like to encourage you to get involved in shaping the IFRS Taxonomy. So you may follow our IFRS Taxonomy by signing into the IFRS website. We also frequently post updates on the ISB LinkedIn account and IFRS Foundation Twitter account. You can also observe online meetings of the external group of experts in the IFRS Taxonomy Consultative Group. And you can comment on our proposed IFRS Taxonomy update when they are published for comments. And obviously you can contact us with any kind of suggestions for the improvements to the IFRS Taxonomy. I would also like to highlight here that we may not be able to reply to specific messages, but we do consider all the suggestions that we receive when updating the IFRS Taxonomy. So now some examples. To start with this, to use the XBRL data as a whole, what we need is the availability of data and a tool to extract that particular information. So to access that data, I will refer to the SEC website of US that provides all the data. So this will be the US SEC website, and just to demonstrate a particular tool. So we are not I'm not in any way promoting this particular tool, but there are various tools that you can use. But I will be showcasing this tool just to show how we use the particular XBRL data. So for example, as a first exercise, I'll show you if I need to analyze the XBRL data of many companies, or for example, all the IFRS reporters. What I do is I just go into the tool and then maybe bulk data. So it stores all the data as soon as the data is filed by the company. So there is no time lag when the company files the data and the third-party aggregator process their data and then put into a software. So that mid path is just gone away. And so I'll just choose companies, then IFRS filers, and then I can just, for example, single period and then 2020. I can select key metrics, for example, revenue, cash and cash equivalents, any key metrics. For example, in this property, plant and equipment, let's say gross property, plant and equipment, and just export to Excel. So it will give me all the data that I need in just a click. So this is the information that I've got. So all these companies have reported these numbers for revenue, for cash, and for PPE gross. So it's just a click away. And how we use the XBRL data is, for example, I want to see how a particular IFRS requirement is being disclosed by the filers. For example, I'll go on IFRS website. Then I'll see a particular requirement. For example, IFRS 16 has some requirements for income from subleasing of assets. I just try to quickly do it. And all. Paragraph 53. So these are the requirements. A lessee shall disclose these amounts. And as a regulator, what I want to say is, I want to see if income from subleasing of right of use assets, how companies are disclosing this particular requirement. So I'll first find out the taxonomy tag for this requirement. I'll just turn on the taxonomy. I will see this is the taxonomy tag for this particular requirement. I'll just copy. So this is the tag that we have in the taxonomy. Copy, and then I'll paste in my data tool. Again, there are various tools, various similar tools that you can use. So I can just see how companies are reporting, what are the amounts that companies have reported for this particular requirement. So I can see if we draft the IFRS standard with something in mind, we can just see if the companies are using that particular requirement as we intend them to do. We generally use this exercise in post-implementation review of IFRS standards that we generally do. For example, 2020, because it was recently issued. And this is the tag that we need, and then just direct to Excel. It will give me all the companies that have used this particular tag. There are various other ways that you can do. For example, I'll just show you quickly. So these are the companies that have used this tag. These were the numbers. So these are the numbers that companies have used to track this particular amount. So one thing is this, and second thing is with the inline filing coming into the picture, some SEC filers are providing their data in inline format, and that is quite useful. For example, this is one of the filing that I've already opened just to save some time. So this is one of the inline file of ArcelorMittal. So there are facts that have been reported are around 7,300 facts the company has reported. And we can now, with the help of this viewer that SEC has provided, we can just navigate through the filing into any section. For example, leases is just a click away. You can go to this particular section on the basis of the tagging that a company has done. So this is one of the features. There are few filters. For example, if I want to see right of use assets, I can just click enter, and then it will show how many facts has been reported with any of the tag that has this word right of use assets. Now there are 25 facts, and if I click on any, it will give me the details. So this is yes. So right of use assets is highlighted here. If I click on any number, it's 77. This is an extension. I'll go on that particular tag, for example, this. So this is the right of use assets. The fact has been reported with the figure 921. The period it pertains to is 31st of December 2018. If I want to get more details about this particular fact, I can get it here. For example, balance is debit because it's an asset. Monetary means it will reflect an amount. So these are the definitions that come directly from the taxonomy, if anyone want to read in detail. And if anyone want to go more in detail, then here is the direct reference to the IFRS standard. And if you click maybe on this, then it will directly get me to that particular requirement in the IFRS standards. So this is main use that we do, direct linking between IFRS filings in XBRL format and the IFRS standards. So this is one of the benefit that we use in, because this is quite difficult in PDF reports. One of the benefit of XBRL data was earlier we used to refer these PDF documents, and while analyzing all the IFRS filings, we generally limited our scope to, let's say, 50 or 60 filings because we have to read through all the filings. And now with this coming into picture, we generally review all the filings that we have available. For example, more than 400 or 450 filings. So that has expanded our scope of analyzing the data. Just quickly, I'll show you there are some more filters. For example, data, I'll see only amounts. And then I can select maybe business combination. So it will give me all the amounts that have been tagged with some kind of business combination facts. So here I've got 140 facts, and these are the detailed tags. For example, this is taxonomy tag, IFRS full. The amount is 2.1. This is 2.1. So this is already been boxed. And again, the detail you can refer on these particular tabs. So this is SEC viewer. SEC has provided to all the companies that will file in inline format. This is one of the benefit, and second benefit was when we used to review the filings, generally there are many European countries who file their financial statements in their respective languages. And with the help of the XBRL coming into picture, this ESMA, the European regulator, has adopted IFRS taxonomy and translated all the labels of that particular taxonomy into their all European languages. So if company report their German financial statements using the IFRS taxonomy, we can see the meaning of that particular information. So I'll just try to briefly cover that. So these are all the SF filings, and these are the languages in that those are being filed. For example, I'll open this Pro Credit. This is filed in German language. I've already opened just to save some time. So this is again German annual report. And now if I want to see how much is the current tax or how much is the current asset, I'll just search on this. Maybe current tax. And then current tax assets. So this will give me 6113. This is again highlighted here, 6113. Obviously I can't read this, but I can understand this 6113, the excess of amount paid for current tax. And if any user want to read in German, obviously they can translate this in German. So it's one of the great benefit that we saw in using this XBRL data. There is one more filing that has possibility to translate in many European languages. I'm not sure if, yes, this one. So for example, non-current assets, this amount is highlighted. Display option, I can translate it into any European language. For example, Italian, this means this. So this is one of the benefits, that it removes the language barrier in the financial statements. And last is the help. Yes. Last is the XBRL API. So XBRL community, XBRL international community has developed an XBRL API through which we can easily extract the data directly from SEC filings into my spreadsheets with just few clicks. So this is a normal Excel sheet that I open. I have one button for XBRL file data. I'll just click on this. I can search on any fact and, for example, get facts by entity name. I can find Infosys, SIFI, Yatra. These are the facts, and just to save the time, I've already copy pasted filter by concept name. This is the concept name. I'm looking for basic earnings per share, diluted earnings per share, and year to which I'm interested in is, let's say, 2019 and 2020. I'm interested in only annual figures, and then data. Then I'll click on this field, and then I'll just click get, and it will fetch all the data directly from the SEC website. So it's just with the help of XBRL data, is everything just a click or 2 clicks away. With the help of proper applications in place, we can use this data. Like, there is a huge potential of use of this particular data. For example, what we are expecting is, for example, let's say we have 10 or 20 years of data. With the help of machine learning, machine can analyze some kind of trends in the data and can easily forecast the financial statements. So these are the amounts that we got for basic earnings per share for this particular company's name is not reported. Maybe I can just quickly get this company name also. Entity name. I'll delete this, and again. So it will give me the company's name and these earnings per share amounts. So this is one of the benefits that we are seeing. And obviously there are a few other benefits. For example, there are some requirements in the IFRS standards, whether have you done this, or we issue the IFRS standards with the permission to early apply those IFRS standards. And we require that particular disclosure requirement in the IFRS standards. If you have early adopted this IFRS standard, just mention this fact in the IFRS, in your financial statements. And we have a taxonomy tag for this. And with the taxonomy tag and the data in place, we can easily see how many companies have early adopted this data or how many have not. So we are utilizing this data in a very efficient manner. Limited constraints are we are having limited access to data. For example, in US, there are around 500 filers. We are not having a big pool of data, but we are having something to see to. So we are analyzing those data, yes. So this is it that I wanted to cover. If anyone has any quick questions, I'm happy to take those up.
Vivekji, there are some questions, but can we take up after the deliberation of these two speakers?
Yes.
Then we'll take it at the end. So
I'll
those
stop sharing the screen.
Listeners, we will definitely try to take up the questions, but before that, let's hear these two speakers. Thank you very much, Vivek. Thank you very much, Vivek. It was very good, enlightening. And the best part is that, we came to know today that, is breaking the language barriers. This is really a breaking news for all of us. It's great. And thank you very much, Vivek. It was a very good deliberation. And please stay tuned because we have got some questions for you, Vivekji. Okay, Ji? All right. Now we have the next speaker who is going to speak on the modernization and the simplification of standards. Because normally I've seen that we are abided by the one language barrier like XML or XTML or something like that. But when I was talking to Revathi Raman, Revathi told me that, Mr. Desai, I'm going to share something good and which will really smitten all the participants and will get smile on all participants. I said, Revathi ji, how? Then they say that I'm going to now talk to you about two formats which will be available in future. So, and those are, I think, JSON or CSV file. Revathi ji, I must share something on a personal note. When I saw you today, I think I've seen you somewhere, it looks like. So, by any chance, are you the same Revathi Raman who has written an article on XBRL in the June 21 edition of ICAI? Am I right?
Yeah, yes, Yagnish. Yes, you're right.
Wonderful article.
Thank you.
And I think I must say something in your language. So so Nenankal Ipati Iruki Kirikal.
Okay. If I understand, yes, na iruke, which translates into, he asked, how are you? And I.
So Nandri for coming to ICAI. Nandri.
Thank you for having me.
And listeners, please now, very interesting thing for all you, that now she's going to talk about two new formats. Am I right? And you corrected me. Don't use the word language, Mr. Desai. Use the word format. Am I right?
Yeah.
So it's over to you, sir. It's over to you.
Okay. Is my slide visible?
Yes, visible.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
And you're clearly audible.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Technologies evolve, so do standards. And I'm here going to talk about two new formats in which XBRL reports can be represented. That is XBRL JSON and XBRL CSV. What are these formats? What are the use cases? What was the need to come up with these formats is what I'll be talking briefly. So first, some introductions. A brief introduction. XBRL International maintains and develops the open data exchange format XBRL. XBRL standard is freely licensed to everyone. The usage even does not require attribution. XBRL International is not-for-profit consortium supported by jurisdictions like XBRL India and other members. We are led by public interest purpose, that is to improve business reporting. One of the aims has been to ensure that the standard stays relevant and to adapt to market needs. So that led to the strategic initiative of open information model for decoupling the standard from its XML roots. The practical outcome of that strategic standard is we have two additional formats in which XBRL can be represented. Now, what is new about these new formats? So these new formats enable simpler representation, They are easier for collection and efficient for publication. They are interoperable, meaning you can go from one format to other in a lossless fashion. All of these benefits without compromising on XBRL's core features such as the unambiguous data definition, multi-dimensional model, or the ability to define or and validate rules, business rules. So let's move on to the use cases for these new formats. XBRL CSV is mainly suited for bulk or granular data collection seen in risk or prudential reporting. On the other hand, XBRL JSON is typically suited for data publication because XBRL JSON is easy to consume. I mean, data in JSON is easy to consume. So we'll go through these formats one by one in detail. Let's start with XBRL CSV. So XBRL CSV, as the name goes, is based on the widely supported and popular CSV format. It has been optimized for efficient large data set reporting. So what you see here in the graph is a sample XBRL report represented in the conventional XBRL XML format and the new CSV format. So you see as the number of facts increases, the file size, the increase in file size for XBRL CSV is considerably low as compared to the traditional XML format. Of course, there isn't a single ratio for file size reduction, but XBRL CSV is extremely efficient when it comes to file size. Next, XBRL CSV is customizable, meaning it can be based on your reporting template. So you could have a fixed a table which has a fixed column and records repeating in the row, or you could have a fixed row and column, a 2D template, or you could also collect data as a key value pair kind of a format. So CSV is not rigid. You can customize the way you want, the way you want to collect data. One important thing to remember about XBRL CSV is the regulator can define the formats. Like we heard Vijit speak from BSE speak that for small companies it is difficult for them to have IT infrastructure to create reports. Now, with CSV, what can happen is the regulator can define the structure of CSV. All the XBRL metadata, the concept, dimension, period, and all of those nitty-gritties can be defined by the regulator, and the companies concentrate only on data preparation, which is a good feature of XBRL CSV. Now, let me show you few sample reporting templates which can be efficiently represented in XBRL CSV. So the first one is from an insurance regulator who is collecting information about reinsurers and brokers. Now you see the column heading is fixed. Now this is the data that he is expecting to be reported for each reinsurer or broker. So because the simplicity of the format, it can be efficiently represented as a CSV data. Next sample is one from an energy regulator where he is collecting data point for every hour of the day. So for every day he collects this. Now this template is going to remain same for all entities who are reporting to that regulator and has a uniform pattern. Of course, it has a large data set. So can easily fit into what XBRL CSV has to offer. So those are two examples for you to relate how, where XBRL CSV can fit. Okay, a few last points on XBRL CSV. So if you're a regulator, data collector, having a fixed template, you're collecting data as per fixed template, you're thinking about large data set collection, or you want to simplify report collection, then I think you should certainly consider XBRL CSV as an option for collection. Okay, now we'll move to XBRL JSON. Now, the next new format that we have. XBRL JSON is simple, intuitive representation of XBRL report in a JSON format. Now, XBRL JSON makes data consumption very easy. Now, why do I say that? There are a lot of developers, programming languages that have embraced JSON for its flexibility and simplicity. There are a lot of libraries, web programs that support JSON as compared to XML. And also there's growing popularity to use JSON as an open data standard. So all of these makes JSON very attractive for software developers to work with. So I can say XBRL JSON is also would be also very easy for software developers to work with. Now, that's not all. XBRL JSON is also efficient because it addresses a lot of structural challenges that the traditional XBRL XML had, which made consumption difficult. Say, for example, the context and the units were decoupled from the facts, or the date had to be interpreted based on the usage. Now, these are particularly tricky when it comes to consuming data in automated fashion. So XBRL JSON came up with an alternative representation, which was very clean, consistent, easy to understand and interpret. Let me show you two facts are represented in XBRL JSON. Now, you see income and assets. These are two concepts. Value is reported against these two concepts, and all the aspects, entity, period, unit, is reported along with the fact. Now, this representation is key value kind of representation. So even anyone new to XBRL or are not familiar with XBRL will understand this representation, because it is clean and consistent, like I said. And because it is so easy to understand, consumption becomes easy. Now, so next, what I'm going to do is, to prove my theory that XBRL JSON is easy to consume, I'm going to demonstrate consuming XBRL JSON in few third-party tools and show you, how you can work with them. Okay, so for this exercise, what I had done is I'd taken few files from BSE, the XBRL reports, quarterly financial results filed with BSE. I'd taken that, converted that into XBRL JSON. There are tools available which does that. I had used Errol and open source XBRL software to do it. So the converted JSON report is what I'm going to use in the tools. So first tool I'm going to use is Tableau. Tableau is a BI and analytical tool, so which allows to connect to a JSON source. Now let me connect to a JSON file. Let me take a Tata Motors. Which one? Okay. Let me take a Tata Motor quarterly filing. Okay. I just parse these things set up. Now, I'll do a very basic breakdown of assets. So let me pull concepts here. So this will give you all concepts reported in the report. We'll do assets. We'll filter for assets. One minute. Okay. Okay, let's take this one. I should have something. Okay. So these are just random concepts that I picked. What I'll do is I'll also pull the value reported against these. This comes okay. So here you have a value. You could do a simple bar chart. You could do a tree map. You could run visualization which suits the data. Of course, you can expand this to add more period, more entity. Let me show you a sample report that I had done comparing automobile companies for Q1. So I had taken Q1 filings for these 3 automobile companies, converted that into JSON, exactly did, and did this simple bar chart. So you see key values from the income statements are compared. So it becomes very easy to compare this way. You could also do a time series analysis. Let me show you another example. So for Amazon.com, what I had done is I'd taken their XBRL filing. They filed to XBRL US. They've taken their 10-year annual report, converted that into JSON, and plotted this time series. So here you can see how their assets and stockholders' equity grew in the last decade. See a gap, which is, of course, a rise in leverage. So I also plotted their revenue and how their revenue and profit grew. You see a sharp rise in last year's profit, I think, which was probably expected. So what I'm showing you is simple reports, but you could have much more sophisticated, insightful reports done from all data reported in XBRL data. Next, what I'm going to do is open a XBRL JSON report in Excel. I think that should excite a lot of people. Now I'm using the inbuilt data connector for Excel. Just going to open a file, open a half-yearly file. Okay. Wait for that to load. Okay, so I'm interested in facts. Let me convert that into a table, expand all its columns. Okay. Okay, so now what you have is all data that is reported in XBRL is now you have it in an Excel file in a tabular format. Now you have the data in Excel. You can pivot it, filter it, sort it, create a template. The possibilities are numerous. You could also, combine a lot of companies. I'll show you a quick ratio analysis template that I did for European. Using European XBRL reporting. So I've extracted the key concepts from what they had reported using the IFRS taxonomy and done this ratio analysis template. I mean, this is just an example. And this does not suggest that, you have to start analyzing XBRL data in Excel, but demonstrates that XBRL JSON, the format and structure of it is so easy that it can be read by third-party tools. These tools, of course, are not XBRL aware. So without pre-processing, without coding, I was able to open and do some very basic analysis. What you could also do is if you want to do a much more complex analysis, you can also use XBRL JSON reports in machine learning models. Let me go back to screen share. Okay, so here what I done, I had taken sample XBRL reports, filed European XBRL reports, and then had loaded this in R and done a clustering model of that. This clustering model, it has grouped company based on its profitability ratio. So these are different clusters, there are few outliers. Such machine learning models could be very useful when an investor is looking to target a specific company or for regulatory supervisory purposes. So XBRL JSON is not restricted to just doing graphs or having tables and templates. You could also do it in machine learning models. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this XBRL JSON thing. What I can see. So if you're a regulator, data collector, already publishing XBRL data, you could consider XBRL JSON as an additional format in which you can publish data. That is because you saw how easy it is to consume data. I mean, one of the goals is that the structured data that that companies take pain to create is being used by end users. Okay, having said that, it is all of the samples that I've showed. You could obviously do using the conventional XML format, but that required a considerable setup and a deep XBRL expertise. Now with XBRL JSON, that dependency is removed significantly. You could use it in a much seamless manner without being invested too heavily in XBRL. Okay, so the current new two formats have gone through a lot of iteration, public comments, cycle, and improvements. I mean, in fact, all specification that we release goes through this elaborate, open, accountable process, which makes the specification well thought out and ensures that it is practically implementable. So these specifications are at the stage, just waiting for final comments. So we hope we could publish this as a final recommendation soon. I've also given links to the technical documentation. So if anyone is interested, they could go and see these. Okay, now this is the last section of my presentation. Now, this brings me to a very obvious question. What happens to the conventional XML format or inline XBRL? The conventional XML XBRL is not redundant and would continue to be supported because they're used in more than 150 implementations. Their investments are to be protected. So this is very much relevant. It is not going anywhere, the conventional formats. What about inline XBRL? Inline XBRL remains the XII recommendation for collecting data in open reporting environment. When I say open reporting environment, these are reporting requirements which are principle based, like Ind AS or IFRS, where the preparer has flexibility in presenting the report. He's not defined to a structure to a specific report layout, like in financial statements, annual accounts. So for that kind of an use case, inline XBRL is still the recommendation. I think we'll hear more about inline XBRL in our next session. Okay, then. Okay, so the conclusion slide, what are the key takeaways? So there are two new formats which are extremely useful. They have expanded the tool set for XBRL toolkit. Data collectors can continue to collect in old formats, but can explore or leverage these new formats. Software vendors can start to develop support for these new formats. Probably they could also integrate third-party analytical tools in their XBRL solution, explore new ways to process these new formats. So the ask here is really experimentation and exploration with these two new formats. Having said that, there are already significant regulators, data collectors who are actively working on to collect data in these new formats, or already started collecting in these new formats. So this is still not final, but people are actively working on that. Okay. I think so. This is a mandatory disclaimer slide. Any comments, feedback that I've shared here are mine alone and does not necessarily represent that of XBRL International or its governing body. Okay, so if you have any comments, we could take at the end of the session, or you could also reach to me at this address. And if you have not already subscribed to the XBRL International newsletter, you should do it to stay on top of all things in XBRL world. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So much, Redhiji. Thank you so much, Redhiji. I have an apology to tender. I was so much eclipsed by your article in the CA Journal that I forgot to tell all my participants that you are also the co-author of implementation guidance and expertise notes for the XBRL technical specification. You have contributed towards XBRL specification development efforts and support in many initiatives. And I think, friends, I must have mentioned this to you earlier also, that Revati Ramananji is a guidance manager at the XBRL International Incorporation, which is a US-based company or the institute, and director with XBRL India. So, Revati ji, my apology to have introduced you a little later, but as I told you, I was over-eclipsed by your article in the magazine today. So thank you so much. It is so great. Now, Revati ji, one question: is this JSON freely available, or one has to subscribe for it, or what is the source of it?
Yeah, all XBRL standards are freely available. They are free of license, so you could
freely available.
Yeah.
What a great television, and we get to know today the new two formats. Yes, you asked me to use the word formats on the not the language. Am I right, Revati ji?
Yeah, indeed. Yes. Yes, Agnish.
Very good. Fantastic television. And now we have the last player, and who is nobody else but Rahul Damane. He's from Mumbai. He is a chartered accountant. Rahul ji, एक बात मैं कहना चाहता हूँ आपसे कि आपका लेक्चर थोड़ा संक्षिप्त में करना पड़ेगा because you left with very little time. It is 16:35 and you have to conclude by 14:55 or 57 latest. But let me give you a quick resume, quick introduction to you. He's a chartered accountant, and since last 10 years you've been actively involved. He thinks, he eats, he breathes, nothing but the XBRL only. And he has undertaken many projects in Middle East, in the Asia Pacific region also. He's presently working with representing the IRIS business, which is the listed company, and this company has developed XBRL. Am I right, Rahul? Your company has developed the taxonomy for the ICAI. Am I right, sir, in saying so?
Yes, we have been working with ICAI for the first taxonomy that was introduced in the year 2010.
I remember it was somewhere back in 2010 or 11 or something like that. Yes.
Yes.
So,
and we also developed taxonomy for RBI as well, so which we continue to do so.
That's great. But Rahul, tell me one thing. You were mentioning something to me about the machine readable language and something like that. Now, tell me one thing. How a common man, a chartered accountant, can benefit as a receiver. You know, we have seen all this now that the XBRL taxonomy is good for those who are reporting. But what about the researchers? What about the other people that if I want to now look at some XBRL reports of say Tata Motors, of say your company, how do I have access to it? Can I benefit something from this? So please throw your light on this, okay?
Sure, and I will cover it.
I have
sure.
no reason to be, very fondly introducing you because you are my look-alike, okay?
You look You look much prettier than me. Don't worry.
No. That's not it. So, listeners, now let's see. Rahul, do you have any practical examples or something for our viewers?
Sure. I'll be showing some live examples of XBRL and how it is benefiting a lot of people.
So I'm not now taking much of your time. It's over to you, Rahul.
Sure. You can see my screen. Just want to get a confirmation.
We can.
Sure. Thank you. So first of all, thanks to Abhijit sir, Vivek and Revati. I think we had a fantastic session. Both Vivek and Revati showed some very good practical scenarios of XBRL. I'm just going to cover the theory part really quick. We directly go into how the data can be used and the usages of XBRL. Just to try to cover the basics, we all know what is XBRL. It's a machine language which caters to the business reporting scenario, and it can be customized to your local needs and purposes. Now, where does XBRL come into picture in this? The only difference right now is that with XBRL, we made the machine more human, but then we forgot that humans are after all humans and they need the format. Part of XBRL comes into the picture where the XBRL is not only taking care of the data, but it is also taking care how you want to show your data, how you want to present the data, how you want people to see the data. The inline part of XBRL is specific to the formatting and the display of the information that you have tagged electronically, digitally for that matter. Now, if you talk about XBRL, we know it works on XML. We know, we have seen some examples today as well that it is the XML syntax. Now, where does the inline comes into picture? The inline is where the HTML part comes into the picture. Now, HTML is very common language for the internet. It is where the internet is there and it will continue to do so. So inline XBRL is basically a collaboration of XML and HTML. And that's how it then renders the financial information the way you want to see it, the way you have prepared it, yet it makes it machine readable, easily machine readable, and easy to consume. So whenever there is an XBRL filing, it is always XML. Whenever there is an iXBRL filing, it is going to be an XHTML. The XML part remains the same. XBRL remains the same. No changes in it. However, on top of that, we are adding one more layer, the layer of dressing up, the layer of presenting it, the layer of formatting it. And that's what iXBRL is more important, more used when it comes to human interaction of the data. Now, let's take some example when I talk about iXBRL for human, what happens? So if you see a report like this, I mean, you are human, you would understand this report is for TCS, this report has concepts and notes and everything. Of course, whenever you want to share this information with anyone, you want the other person also to view the information in the same way, right? That is the basic need of every human. Now with XBRL, what we were doing, with XBRL, we were taking each and every tag, we were considering them as a fact value, tagging them. We were adding the period for which they are reported. We are adding the concepts that are being reported. We were adding the dimensions to it, whether it's a standalone or consolidated. We are adding identifiers, which company, what is the purpose. Then the currency, of course, we were adding. This is what XBRL was doing. And this was done mainly with the purpose to make machine understand this data. Now with XBRL, machine has understood the data, but when the machine is displaying the data, it is not the format that humans are actually submitting or creating that format. And that's where the iXBRL comes into the picture. So what iXBRL does is, in addition to whatever XBRL is doing, it adds on top a layer for display structure. So this is the display that you have, where you have TCS mentioned on the top, left-hand side, consolidated on left-hand side. You have in millions reported in italic. You have assets in bold, other concepts in normal font. All this is taken care in iXBRL, which we call as display structure. Font and styling, which I just gave you example, be it italics, bold, or any other format that you use. If it is supported by HTML, iXBRL will capture it and we will display it the way it's supposed to be displayed. Images. With XBRL, the common question was, can images be distributed? Can images be displayed? XBRL was not yet involved to get the images, but iXBRL does give a chance for the digital data to also carry images of signature, directors, anything that you want to put to make the information that you're sharing more useful to the receiver. Typically, we know our financial statements are signed by directors, signed by auditors, signed by a lot of people. When you are filing in XBRL, these signatures don't go. But in iXBRL, you can also send these signatures, but they go as images, not as a digital form, but it helps in the display of the information. Data which is not tagged in XBRL, like your notes, you see these references which are actually referred to the schedules in the later part of the report. These are not tagged in XBRL because the XBRL is taking care of this using the common tags between the schedules and the face financial. However, whenever you have to display to the human, you want to have notes in a display structure like this, and that's also getting captured in iXBRL. This is an example of face financial statement. Let me show you an example of notes, what happens in notes. Now, if you see the notes again, you have created this note in a particular way, in a particular sentence format, in a particular words that you have chosen to use to prepare this note. In XBRL, what we do, we pick up the important fact values and then tag the context, the concepts around it, put it into an XBRL structure. Now, XBRL is able to pick these information and distribute it to you, but the XBRL cannot show you the text that you have written, or you cannot, you can search the text, but it cannot detailedly identify or pick it up. iXBRL, what it does is again takes the whole display structure, takes the note that you have written in the language that you have written, the fonts that you have written, the data that is not tagged also gets tagged and displayed in an iXBRL format. We will see the actual use case of iXBRL in the later part of the slides. Now, this is how the machine this is how the humans are able to see the iXBRL. Now, let's see what machine is able to see. the same information that I highlighted in my previous slide, the same information will be seen by machine in an XBRL format for facts. So you see the difference. The syntax is different because IXBRL is an HTML format with TD and all those information that is there in HTML, whereas XBRL is an XML format. However, the information is the same. The fact value remains the nature of fact value remains the same. The context remains the same. The tag, the XBRL tag remains the same. The currency is tagged. In addition to all these facts and context, we are also capturing the display structure in their HTML format. You can see the fonts, you can see the styling, and the additional information which is not covered in XBRL. So the basic idea about IXBRL is to have XBRL in place and add a layer on top of it so that it makes humans more easy to read that information in a machine readable format. Otherwise, till now, people used to have customized reports. Regulators used to create customized report. All the applications that were available to consume XBRL data were creating their customized display structures for displaying the data on XBRL. Because of introduction of IXBRL, a lot of display structure has been standardized. It is what you prepare. You display what is being submitted by the filer. Some key differences or key aspects to remember. I won't say differences, but key aspects. The purpose of XBRL was machine readability. The purpose of IXBRL is both machine and human. Imagine one document that can do both. It can be read by machine. It can also be read by humans in the same structure. Tools. With XBRL, you would need a specialized tool to see the report, to see the data. With IXBRL, any internet browser, you should be able to see the IXBRL part of the information. Because it's an XHTML document, it can be open in any internet browser. Syntax, I think I already covered this. XBRL is XML based. IXBRL is XHTML based. However, the XHTML part does include XML in between, inline in that document. When it comes to taxonomy, there is no change in the taxonomy. Taxonomy can be same. For the same taxonomy, you can have XBRL document as well as IXBRL document. So it's not that the taxonomy undergoes a change. It is only the data and how you display that undergoes a change. Important aspect that I wanted to cover today is the global usage. Who is using it? Why are they using it? And probably how they are using it. The how part is for some of these usages. I'll show you how they are using it. But if you talk about government regulators, I think Vivek and Revati also covered a lot of European companies will be filing in IXBRL to their capital market regulator. In US SEC, the filers which are listed in SEC are already filing in IXBRL format. Many companies have started to publish their financial statements in an IXBRL format on their investor section. A lot of companies in Europe have started to do it because they know that this is the format that will be predominantly used in the near future. Data aggregators, Reuters and Bloomberg have also started to use the IXBRL data made available on the company's website. Now, remember, these data aggregators used to take the information from either the regulator or intermediaries. Once you publish the IXBRL data, IXBRL filing on your website, these guys can directly source the data from you without any intermediaries. And that is up to the company now, how much detail you want to give it to them, either it paid or free. Data aggregators would be happy to take those services. Credit rating agencies, again, agencies like Crystal, they can make use of IXBRL directly being published in the investor section of the companies. They can take it from there. Academic researchers, there are various tools available. However, with IXBRL, they can view the report in an easy, friendly manner. Along with it, they can also use the data, copy paste it in some third-party tool or directly source it in the third-party tools for automated analysis purposes. Then the fintech startups, I think some of the example we just saw in Vivek's demonstration and also in Revati's demonstration. So these are all fintech companies, software entities, which are using these standards, IXBRL and XBRL standard, to come up with their products and services. So some products works on Excel, some product work on the web pages, but they all use the underlying standard of XBRL, including Iris and Workiva. They have their own applications that can show you the data, automate the analysis, the comparability, all these things. There are enough software available. They are all working on XBRL data. Now, the important factor is the auditor. Now, probably this is the first time you guys are hearing about it, how auditor can use iXBRL or XBRL also for that matter. But it is a reality in Europe. Auditors, chartered accountants, equivalent to chartered accountant like us, are using iXBRL data for auditing purposes. And two specific clients that we have is KPMG and RSM in Europe. I'll just show you what they are doing. Let me first cover some part of the session. Now let's see if a company has to publish iXBRL document for investor section, how they will do it. Then we'll see a regulator. If regulator has to publish iXBRL, what they will do. And then we go to the auditor part later. Okay, now let's see an example. This is our company. Okay, let's take example of a European bank case, KBC. I'll go to the report section. I think we all know how to find the financial statements on a website of the company. However, it just becomes easy for the investor or for any other fintech company if you just publish your iXBRL document on your website. This is how they will directly source it. Now, KBC Group has published XSTML document for that year. You just click on it. And instead of you usually downloading the PDF, going through or scrolling through the document, you can go through their inline document. I hope it loads fast. Yeah. Now, if you see, the report is exactly what their PDF is. It is, the look and feel is going to be the same. You would not find a difference as to whether it's an XBRL document or XBRL document. But however, when you search for the facts, it is an XBRL document. You search for a fact, it will show you all the facts that are tagged. If it is IFRS or anything, you can click on it. It will take you to that concept, show you all the concepts that are tagged. Now, if you click on that tag, you will see what is the tag, what is the value, currency, millions, and everything. So all this information is machine readable. Of course, humans, you must want to see the tag and value. They can see that. But if you put this information into a machine readable form, it does much better job in doing the analysis. Now, if you see here, the main difference here between XBRL and iXBRL is that in the same screen, it is able to do both. The bottom part is what machine will read and use. The top part is what humans will see and use. And that's what is really beneficial for the companies, that they can publish the data both in machine readable and human readable form using the same file. It's not necessarily to create a different filing. Like if you see here, in between values have been tagged in XBRL, but the whole text is coming as is, as reported, which you can search, you can copy paste, and anything that you want to do if you want to use it in a human readable form. Similar to this, so this is for the entity. You can do that if you are a listed entity. If you are a regulator, how would you use it? So if you are a regulator, you basically, where is that? I think this is already shown by Vivek, but however, I'll just touch upon it. If you're a regulator, like if you're a MCA and you have iXBRL document coming into you, you can easily publish it onto a website. Just list those iXBRL documents and people can view, download in JSON format, which we discussed recently. And once they click on view, an iXBRL document will be shown. It is the same annual report that is published by the entity. And it will exactly match with the PDF that you have prepared. It will exactly match with the signature that are there. And in addition to that, you will also have all the concepts reported in it. So if I search for a concept, let's say interest income, you'll see interest income is tagged here and it is getting displayed. So the whole idea here is to make information easily accessible, make it look the same as humans are preparing it, using it, but make it machine readable. So here KPMG audit signature, you can see all the details you can see. However, it is not in XBRL, it is tagged in HTML document. but the document itself is already XBRL in nature. So machine is also able to read it. And that's where the benefit comes into picture whenever you have to use this data. Now let's get to the main part of, how auditor can use it, benefit from it. Now, there are various applications that are built around it. Of course, we have our own application, but you will find a lot of fintech companies also creating their own applications like this. And the whole point here is, it's not just XBRL, the data that is important here. It is also whether the data that you have reported is valid, whether the data that you have reported is actually the structure that is signed by the auditors or the directors. We often, whenever I used to do my audit, of course, we used to be very strict as to nothing changes from one Excel to another, from Word document to another document whenever the annual reports are published or even getting printed. That's what everything this audit does. Of course, it will check your formats. Of course, it will check for the concepts, whether your concepts are there. You, as an audit manager, you can say whether the tag is right, tag is rejected. You can hold on the tag. You can give comments that, this tag is incorrect. You need to check it. You need to change it. The formatting is not correct. You have to change the form. All these comments you can give in an XBRL based application like this. This is also part of the audit that we have. Then the most important part is the validation, which I want to cover here. Validation is what? There are validation with respect to XBRL, that is the syntax level validation. Then there are validation which has respect to the accounting standard and the rules. Now, these rules are part of the taxonomy, so they will check whether the report that is created is as per the validation rules. So there are different rules by different regulators. So if any concept is not available, it is not tagged, but they were supposed to tag it, it will highlight saying that there are errors, it is failed, and auditor can just go through it, give the comments so that it can be checked. The one that are passed will show like this, that all the calculation as per the taxonomy is correct. It will also show what is reported, what is calculated by the machine, and if there's any difference in it. You click on the concept and it will also identify all the details that is there in this. Now, basic checks again with respect to the XBRL standard. Now, if I can show you some other example, let me just go back. And I'll take Bitcame. And this is, just want to show you a validation error. So if there is a calculation error, this is how it will show that it is failed. It will also show the difference. Now, this difference is not mainly because of any mistake in reporting, but probably it is the rounding out difference. But the whole point here is, if you have a data standard like IXBRL or XBRL, you can have such applications in place. And these applications can automate a lot of your tasks, be it auditing, accounting, or analytics. XBRL has predominantly greatly impacted how regulators analyze the data, consume their data, and do compliance on it. IXBRL is very significantly impacting the way people will use the data, see the data, audit the data, because you want to audit the way report you have created. Now here is an example as to if data is available in IXBRL format, we can automate a lot of things, even auditing part of it, which usually was most of the time manual driven, but now we can bring this IXBRL into picture and create auditing applications on top of it. Now I'll stop with this. I think I have overshot my time on that, but I'm happy to take any questions on this. Yagnesh sir, over to you.
Rahul, thank you so much. It was a wonderful deliberation, and more so, see, for the first time, इसकी उम्मीद हमें नहीं थी. We were not expecting this. But Baujud sir, you said something from the perspective of the auditor, and that was, mashallah, very good. Very good. Sir. Honestly. True. Because आखिर CA एक auditor ही है, sir. You always view from that perspective as an auditor's perspective, right? So True. I have one question, at the cost of sounding stupid, Rahul, can I ask you a question?
Please, sir.
You say that you can download the two reports. One is in the PDF, one is the XML file, XBRL format, XTML format. But do I need to have any software on my system for that?
For iXBRL, you don't need any software. Your browser is enough for you to display that information in equally
so I will call
intelligent.
it artificial intelligence XBRL. Am I right? Very
You can say so. And it is just a starting point. I'll tell you, there's a lot of research going on where everything will be automated. A lot of application will get used to it. I won't be surprised if you can open an iXBRL document in a Word file and Microsoft will support that standard, which makes it just automatic.
I don't know where this world is going to stop. Anyway, without wasting too much of our time and doing too much of a dichotomy, there are some few questions, but before that, I must give the due credit. So whatever you are seeing today is, and the all coordination is done by staff members, and I think I must give them credit. And these staff members are nothing but the Vaishali, Dipti and SN Gupta ji. So I think we must give them a big hand of applause to the staff members. Unki badaulat ye possible hai, and they have, and all the technical staff, and of course the head honchos of the ICAI, which has made this possible, the digital transformation. And today, we have Mr. Vivek from London. And Hamari Revati ji hai from New Bombay, and again Rahul ji is from New Bombay. So all are in one platform. All credit goes to the torch bearers of the ICAI. So the staff members, my personal thanks to you, all of you. And now we'll take the questions. So the questions are like this. Mainly the question are for Vivek Beji. Vivek ji, आपके लिए प्रश्न है, how the notes oblique disclosures are captured in the taxonomy. I repeat the question, Vivek ji, this question is for you. How the notes and disclosures captured in IFRS taxonomy?
Okay, so I'll try to respond to this. So two parts. First is IFRS taxonomy and second is IFRS filing. So IFRS taxonomy, we refer the IFRS standard and derive all the presentation and disclosure requirements from the standards. And thereafter we create the taxonomy elements in the particular presentation group in that IFRS taxonomy. For example, for business combinations, we will have all the taxonomy elements of the detailed notes in that particular group in the taxonomy. And for IFRS filings, it's about regulators, how they want to capture this disclosure that are in notes. For example, in ESMA, they are requiring the tagging of only primary financial statements. So they are not requiring the detailed tagging of the notes or to the financial statements. But in US SEC, all the numbers in the detailed notes are required to be tagged. So they are not interested in the text information. They are interested in only the numbers. So the detailed notes is tagged with a block of text and the numbers are tagged individually in SEC and the numbers are left untagged in European filings.
Okay, are you done with the answer? Okay, now the next question is for Mr. Rahul. Rahul ji, this question is that does XBRL based statements allow for comparative or other analysis, ratios, etc.? I repeat the question. Does XBRL based statement allow for comparative, allow for comparison maybe, or other analysis, ratios, etc.?
Sure. The simple answer is yes. I think in today's session, Abhijit sir from BSc has mentioned it. Vivek and Revati also mentioned. The whole purpose of XBRL is automating your comparability, analysis, ratio calculation. Abhijit sir did mention that BSc is not taking ratios. It's not taking percentages from the filers. BSc is automatically calculating on its own using the XBRL data. So the answer to it is yes, that's the main purpose of XBRL.
On it. Thank you. Thank you. And now, Revati ji, there are three or four questions remaining, and all these are for you. Question number one, is XBRL taxonomy also in JSON? Is XBRL taxonomy also in JSON?
Okay, right now only XBRL reports, that is the instance document, can be represented in JSON. Taxonomy is there's a long-term plan to even move taxonomy representation to formats like JSON. So currently, no.
All right. The second question is whether two formats accepted by the statutory authority in India?
Rightly, no. I mean, currently, these two formats are not accepted in any regulator.
And I think the second last question is sequel to that only. Is this, are these two new format, is it still in use in India? I think officially not, if I may interrupt. Not officially, is it, right?
Probably.
This is what you taught us in just 25 minutes. That's great. All right, and now the antim prashn, last question, whether corporate companies aware of these two formats. I think they
my assessment is largely they may not be if they are not following XBRL developments, because this is these are recent developments. I mean, has been around for just 2 years. But if they follow XBRL conferences or other materials, they would be aware of this. Yeah.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, all the panelists, all the speakers, for answering our participants' question. And now we are heading for the very, very, very important part of this session, and that is vote of thanks by none other than the Joint Director SN Gupta ji. SN Gupta ji, hot seat पे आपका स्वागत है. आप कंप्यूटर जी, हमारे SN Gupta का स्वागत है, and please आप शुक्रिया अदा कीजिए. बहुत ही अहम चीज.
Thank you, Yagnesh ji. And the webinar was really wonderful, very informative, and I attended full 2-hour session. The knowledge on JSON, the IFRS perspective, the BSC perspective, the inline was very, very new topics for us as well, and very informative. And this webinar once again shows the commitment of ICAI, that we want to take commitment of ICAI leadership. Our Honorable President Sir, Honorable Vice President Sir, and all the directors on XBRL, that we want to take this XBRL taxonomy to a different tangent. We have been doing these programs and regular meeting with regulator also. We want to cover NBFC, we want to cover banks, insurance sector as and when they come on the India's umbrella. We have been doing this program, and the XBRL sectorate has really become very active in recent past. In recent past. So I really enjoyed this webinar. I thank my leadership, President Sir. I thank Vice President Sir, the Central Council member, Charanjot Singh ji, and who's also a director on XBRL, and a very learned Mr. MPV ji, whose guidance is always available to all of us, and is also a director on XBRL. In terms of the very galaxy of star speaker, are really enlightened, really very happy to see all my star galaxy speakers, eminent speaker, Shri Abhijit Rai ji. I thank you very much personally. Vivek Vaid ji, who took your valuable time and connected with us from London. Madam Revati, always willing to help us in whatever way. She's always give her valuable time in all our XBRL program. And Rahul Dhamane ji, thank you very much, all of you. And this program, I'm sure to the participant as well, will bring too much of visibility on the topic of XBRL. XBRL is not new to India. It has been going on for so many years, but now I think we have to touch the new height in XBRL. I would like to thank you, all of you, personally, and on behalf of XBRL Secretariat, on behalf of ICAI, and all the participants who has attended this program. Thank you very much, and stay safe in the time of pandemic. Thank you very much. Yagnesh, you want to say something?
Yes, sir. How many participants have participated, sir?
Vaishali.
Okay.
Sir, we have got 600 participants.
600, okay. Now, to all the galaxies of today, can anyone, if any chartered accountant wants to take up XBRL as a career? As a career?
700. Sir, 700. Yagnesh is 700.
So big kudos to all of you. Kudos to all of you. If a chartered accountant really wants to take up this as a career, what are the prospects? And can he or she take up this as a career, XBRL? Yes, please, go ahead.
So it's a big yes, capital letters, bold, whatever you want to highlight. I think one important factor that we have to remember is that the world is going digital, and your financial statements, your financial data, it's only about time that everything goes digital, automated. And there is huge opportunity for fintechs, startups to come up in India. And most of the startup will be focusing on your annual report, the way you create, the way you audit, the way you distribute. And we as a chartered accountant, we know in and out of the financial data. We know in and out of the accounting standard. And that's where we are more importantly required in that business aspect.
Fine. Vivekji, what's your say on this?
So I fully agree with this. So I have already, I'm already. So yes, I have already set up my career in XBRL and I am very happy with this.
That's
and in
good.
future, I can see this
career choice. That's good. Revati-ji?
I think I'll second what Rahul and Vivek said. I mean, there are opportunities to explore. The world is going digital, and we can't be tied to PDF. So yes, it's a time that.
Dosto, the new generations, the new chartered accountants who are watching this program, I strongly recommend to think beyond the horizons and look for XBRL. I'm thankful to ICAI for giving me opportunity to host this, to moderate this session. And I think हमारे भाई साहब आए अभिजीत जी, आपके क्या राय है? कोई चार्टर्ड अकाउंट एज अ करियर लेना चाहे एज अ स्पेशलिटी? Because now the time has come to know more and more of less and less speciality.
I'm kind of say everyone should have an exposure to technology, especially since I have a technology background. I am not somebody who is from the CA or CS background. I'm as you.
सर आप तो मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर है, फिर भी
मैकेनिकल नहीं सर, इलेक्ट्रिकल हम लोग झटका देने वाले हैं.
झटका देने वाले हैं. तो उसके बाद भी बट फाइनेंस में भी झटके बहुत लगते हैं सर. हाँ
सो वो तो दैट्स व्हाट बेसिक ट्रेनिंग की वजह से ये हो गया. बट द थिंग इज एवरीवन नीड्स टू बी appraised of the new technological trends. That's more important. It is irrespective of whether you are a CA or even an arts graduate. It's not something. Learning technology doesn't hurt. And in fact, I know somebody whom I was speaking to today. He's an arts graduate. He went into armed forces and he now runs a technology company.
That's great.
And he has been awarded for some kind of technological innovations when he was in the armed forces.
Thank you very much, sir. So the one takeaway from this webinar is think of XBRL as a career. All the best to you, friends.
Thank you. Thank you, Agnes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.